What's happening, everybody? It's been a little while. It's been a bit of time. Good to be back on the mic, though. Hopefully everybody's doing well. Hopefully everybody's been enjoying the off season so far. Obviously, for some folks, there never really is an off season. I had to actually take a bit of one this year. It was a bit of a busy winter and spring for me, but hoping to get this back into the rotation a little bit more. Talking shop with you guys with the draft just a couple of weeks away. Truly kicking off the Dynasty season for Dynasty managers and, of course, even redraft folks. They're paying attention at this time of year because whether it pertains to your real NFL team or if you are scouting for redraft, which some folks are, keeping tabs on what takes place over the course of the draft and where players end up landing spots and who gets impacted by who gets, by which team select which players. The time for preparation, it kind of starts now. For Dynasty, obviously, you've been probably looking at these things for several weeks now, with obviously a long-term view top of mind. But redraft folks are, at least the beginnings of homework for the 2025 season. It really begins this time of year. After the draft, truly, for redraft. But now is the time to really start figuring out which players catch your eye, which players are you interested in. Landing spot will obviously impact a lot. Draft capital, of course, will be a massive player. But if you've got guys that you like, going into the draft, and they end up in ideal situations, ideal spots, you can put a pin in that as, okay, I already did my homework. I know I like that player. Now I feel good about the situation that they ended up in. As long as the draft capital is good, you can kind of start saying to yourself, these guys are the guys that I'm going to prioritize. And if I'm drafting them a round or 2 rounds ahead of their ADP, or if I'm, reaching, so to speak, in a rookie draft in a dynasty league because there's a guy that I like way higher than consensus, then you can feel confident doing that. Now is the time to start looking at that stuff and start planning. So we could talk shop on the rookies today. I'll be honest, it's been a bit, so I'm willing to just kind of, if there's anything anybody specifically has, whether it's a player, whether it's a current player, whether it's an incoming rookie, whether it's a situation, maybe a wide receiver room or a running back room on any one team, we can talk shop on that. I kind of don't have an agenda at the moment. I just wanted to make sure that I got some FaceTime with those who are still paying attention this time of year, who are paying attention to the Dynasty prospects, and considering which rookies to potentially add to their Dynasty squads. I always forget to do this. Let me make sure I share my live stream with my Discord friends. All right. What I'll plan to do for now is I'll start at the top, give a rundown of like the general consensus, the top 3 to 5 prospects at each position, just like some very quick thoughts from what I've watched, what I've seen, from information I've gathered from folks who do this as more of like do this for more of a living, more of a full-time thing. I understand I'm a little bit more in the I would be more in like the part-time area of this space, but still keep tabs, still keep track, still do my own check-ins, my own looks at players, and then of course absorb the information from the folks that are plugged in the industry, and go from there. And we can talk any one specific prospect, any one specific player. It doesn't have to be a rookie necessarily. If there's any thoughts that you may have, because you may be doing best ball. Obviously, that is also a format that I talk about a lot. Something that is obviously openly available to anybody who obviously you have to be in an eligible location to play best ball, depending on the site or platform that you use. But that's obviously a popular feature that is happening right now, and you can get potentially, again, if you do any homework on some of these rookies, you can get some decent value in best ball drafts. Whereas some folks who are doing best ball at this time, you may have a love for fantasy football if you're drafting best ball teams in April, but you may not be entirely familiar with all of the rookies, and somebody who is going to have a little bit more of a leg up while their ADP is pretty low. So there is obviously some risk involved with drafting the rookies, but if you have your guys that you believe in, guys that you believe will do well regardless of whatever happens, because you trust that they've earned the draft capital up to this point, and that the landing spot will be, whether it's ideal or you think that they'll just beat out all potential competition regardless, now's a good time to get some value. We'll start with the quarterbacks. The general consensus at this point, for anybody who has kind of unplugged after the redraft season, not a particularly strong quarterback class as far as the rookies this year, especially not compared to what is shaping up to be an incredible 2024 draft class. That's going to be a difficult one to top. The top prospects in this year's class probably don't even crack the top 5 of last year's quarterback prospects, just based on expectations. Obviously, a lot can change. These guys haven't had a chance to take a snap in the NFL yet, so who knows what they turn into and develop. But as of right now, they are not as highly touted as the prospects that came in last year. So with that, Cam Ward is generally considered the top quarterback in this class, followed generally by Shedeur Sanders and then Jackson Dart. Some folks have Dart ahead of Sanders at 2. And then there's a wild card in Jalen Milroe. What will he be? What type of role does he necessarily have in the NFL? In all likelihood, he is headed toward a backup role, at least right away, because we're not expecting him to be a first-round selection. So, how long do you wait on a Jalen Milroe type before a lack of an opportunity ultimately goes against him? So we have to kind of wait and see what happens with Milroe, but it's pretty much a 3-person group, 3-man class between Ward, Sanders, and Dart. And from all of the comps that I've seen, these guys are all kind of expected to be, their ceiling appears to be maybe game managers, not necessarily guys that take over, ascend to the elite level, and can win games for their team, for their franchise. Don't want to crucify anybody before they actually get the chance to do something. Again, this is just kind of the expectation based on film review and what these prospects look like as far as predicting what they may do at the NFL level. So Cam Ward is number 1. he's probably, again, just to compare last year's excellent class for a little bit of context, if Cam Ward were to be drafted along with the 2024 prospects, he's probably the QB5 or QB6 as far as the rankings go. Looks like an NFL caliber player. That's the good thing. Like, that's the most positive thing you can say right now. Enough to the point where he has earned the right, in all likelihood, to be the number 1 overall pick in this draft. Draft capital is everything, regardless of the year. If you are the first overall pick as a quarterback, you're going to have an incredibly long leash in the league. So from a dynasty perspective, Cam Ward has a lot of intrigue based on that alone. The guys at Fantasy, the footballers, they called this out. He's got an inspiring story. So if you're a believer in intangibles like that, Cam Ward overcame a lot, transferred schools multiple times, including, I believe he was at the junior level at first, before ultimately having an incredible season with the Hurricanes, to the point where now he's going to be, in all likelihood, the first overall pick to the Tennessee Titans. Overall, like, they've been a decent organization. They've made some bad decisions here and there over the past couple of years, but they've been generally competitive over the past decade. They have a lot of work to do as far as retooling their offensive line, but they've got a decent option in the backfield in Tony Pollard. They've got a good number 1 wide receiver still, at least for now, in Calvin Ridley. So there are decent options there. They can obviously invest. Assuming they take Cam Ward, they can either invest again with more picks, more of their draft capital, either in the offensive line or in the weapons department. Offensive line would be a little bit more preferential. We want to keep our guys upright, but weapons would be a nice, whether it's a wide receiver or a tight end. I mean, Chigakonkwo has flashed. He's a solid playmaker, but there's theoretically room to improve or upgrade there from a personnel perspective for Tennessee. So wouldn't be a bad landing spot. Ideally, they improve the offensive line, but if Cam Ward goes to Tennessee, he should have the chance to be a solid NFL quarterback for some time, and therefore retain some decent dynasty value. I mean, you're probably, I got to think, at least 4 or 5 years, if not longer, and that's just a very conservative projection. When you're the number 1 overall pick, again, whether you remain a starter for a while or not, you will have longevity in the league, health obviously, hopefully holding up for you. So incredibly safe. He should be in the conversation for the 2nd or 3rd overall pick in Superflex drafts. In Superflex rookie drafts, of course. In 1 quarterback leagues, he's probably a little bit more of a mid to late first round pick, with the appeal, of course, again, being his draft capital should bode very well for the length of his NFL career, the duration of his NFL career. There should be a rock solid floor there for Cam Ward. And then depending on who you ask, QB2 and QB3, Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart. Excuse me. Dart, the QB2 for some. Sanders, the QB2, I think, for most, but not all. With Sanders, of these 3 guys, he's probably I would say he's kind of, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but he's maybe the most boring prospect in that as a thrower of the football, as a pocket passer, he has shown that he can play at an NFL level. I got a tickle in my throat. Excuse me. Shedeur Sanders from the pocket, I think, has done enough, has proven that he can be a pocket passer at the NFL level. What that looks like is another story as far as where does he land as compared to his peers. Accurate thrower of the football, leads his receivers well, high completion percentage, and very good within structure. Like when a play is going as designed and it's going well, Shedeur Sanders makes it happen. He can get the ball to the receiver or where it needs to go. Like running the game plan, running effective plays that work on a play-by-play basis, Shedeur Sanders can give you that. I think the concern for Sanders is when things break down, out of structure, if he needs to climb the pocket, escape the pocket, if everything isn't working exactly as it should on a play-per-play basis, that's where the questions arise when it comes to Shedeur Sanders. And he's not really a threat as a runner. Not compared to Ward or even Jackson Dart. Dart's a better has a little bit more upside as a runner than Shedeur Sanders does. Depending on how you feel about it, regardless of how you feel about it, one of the things that you need to remember with the college game is quarterback rushing stats. Quarterback rushing stats get taken away on sacks. So if you get sacked as a quarterback in college, you lose rushing yards as well. That's not the case at the NFL level. So, on one hand, you could say NFL quarterback rushing stats are inflated. On the other hand, you could say college football rushing stats for a quarterback don't tell the whole story. Regardless of where you stand, rushing yards for a quarterback are factored into the sacks that they take. That said, Sanders finished the season with negative 50 rushing yards. So, as a result of the sacks that he took, Sanders was a negative in the rushing yards in the scrambling department. That obviously wouldn't be the case at the NFL level, but it's fair to ask, especially from a fantasy perspective, how effective is Shedeur Sanders going to be if he's not really that much of a threat running the ball? If he's more of just a game manager and maybe he starts for a team for a long time and he's putting up decent numbers through the air because he's an accurate passer and he's got good weapons to throw the football to and a good system working around him. That's all well and good. He could be a decent QB2, probably a little bit more ideal that he's your QB3, though, if he's not giving you rushing production. That's more... Quarterback rushing production is less and less of an X factor each year, and that's to say, anymore we're all going out of our way to find a quarterback that brings that to the table, at least in some capacity. It doesn't have to be at an elite Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen type level, but we're looking for quarterbacks to at least give you a little something on the ground. Say anywhere from 200 to 400 rushing yards on the year. That's what we're looking at. That's like the floor of what we're hoping for. So a quarterback that can't bring that to the table is just not going to be very enticing from a fantasy perspective. And that's the concern with Sanders. The pros with Sanders, accurate thrower of the football, high completion percentage, excellent in structure. The questions are more out of structure and as a runner. With Dart, it's kind of the opposite. Big time throw rate, check. Can scramble, check. Can make big plays, check. That's Dart. Dart can give you that. It's just he's got a lot of experience at Ole Miss. He played all 4 years in college, so he's got a lot of experience under his belt. But for Dart, that raises the question of, okay, well, if he's NFL capable, why didn't he declare earlier? Why didn't he declare after his junior season? That being said, he's expected to be a first-round pick. So again, maybe not number one overall type of leash as far as run that you can expect him to have at the NFL level, but he's going to have a long leash as a first-round pick, assuming he gets drafted in the first round by a team that needs a quarterback either right now or no later than a year from now. Dart has the upside, but I would say Sanders has the higher floor. Dart is a little bit more all or nothing. So if you're more of a risk taker, you want to roll the dice, it's fair to say that you maybe prefer Dart. He's got a big arm. He can throw it a mile, and he can run. He can scramble. Stats are stats, right? And that's all we have to go off of, or one of the only things we have to go off of. Dart is a better runner than Shedeur Sanders. And for fantasy purposes, that makes him a little bit more intriguing. Dynasty, there's more of a conversation there, but on a redraft, year-by-year basis, it wouldn't be surprising to see, assuming both work out and they are the starters for their team, at least this year and possibly next year, you're probably going to see Dart go higher than Sanders because of that rushing intangible. Dynasty, you can obviously have a little bit more wiggle room with a, I don't want to sell Shedeur short of, calling him a game manager, but that seems to be kind of what everyone is hoping he pans out to be at the NFL level. From a dynasty perspective, there's still value there. From a redraft perspective, year over year, if there's no rushing floor to lean on or feel good about, then redraft not so much. And then there's Milroe. I mean, he's truly we'll wait and see and ultimately see what happens, where he lands, what team takes him, what type of, how they utilize him. Not a first round pick. Probably more likely to be a second round pick. And generally speaking, when you're a second round pick as a quarterback, you start off as a backup. There are exceptions to the rule. Second, third round picks are generally backups. There are a couple of cases where they become starters right away or very early on. But in general, you start off as a backup, and then it's kind of like a wait and see mode from there. Who does Jalen Milroe end up backing up? Who is he behind? Is he behind a lame duck quarterback like Derek Carr? Does he end up behind somebody who's a little bit more entrenched in their role, and therefore the climb to an opportunity is a little more difficult? And then, of course, we know he's a freak athlete. We know he's fast as hell. I think there's questions that are, pertain more to, can he play quarterback at the NFL level? Exciting player, exciting prospect, fast as shit. Fast as hell, but not, can he play the position? We'll see. What's going on, Rojo? I was just about to start talking about the running backs. Because there aren't too many quarterbacks in this class to go over, and it doesn't have a ton of intrigue compared to last year. But the running backs, it's a completely different story. 2024 was the year to not draft a running back, except for Bucky Irving, pretty much, or at least not draft a running back high. Hopefully you didn't draft Jonathan Brooks or Trey Benson or Blake Corum. This year, it's the opposite. You want the dudes that are one, highly touted, and two, the class runs 7-8 deep. There's a lot of interesting running backs this year. Genty is obviously the 101. Even in Superflex formats, blue chip prospect. Looks like he's going to be the part. Probably as long as the landing spot isn't a complete head scratcher, Genty probably slots in from day one as I'll just say, conservatively, a top 6 or 7 dynasty running back, and he's probably higher than that. Amarian Hampton, he's interesting. He's also polarizing. There's questions about, can he be a 3-down back at the NFL level? He's a little more polarizing. The guy that I would probably put second overall for me is Travion Henderson. And that's just, I've always been a sucker for dynamic, explosive playmaking, even if it comes at the expense of consistency. Henderson is intriguing to me. I don't know that he necessarily takes over a backfield, but if he's the lightning to another back's thunder, which is kind of like what that was Judkins. That was Judkins was the thunder for Ohio State, and I think Henderson was a little bit more the lightning. Depending on that landing spot, I definitely like Henderson. I mean, there's quite a few running backs that are really interesting. In kind of what goes against what I typically look for and like. Again, maybe it's just because it's flashy and big plays are sexy, and that's why you kind of look at those names first and you go after those guys. But I'm actually going to say, I think a name that is a little bit of an opposite of that, who I think a lot of folks they're feeling good about, but it depends on how much you care about athleticism, and that's Devin Neal. He's not a very good athlete, Devin Neal, but compared to, we're talking about compared to his peers, of course. But he does a lot of things really well. He does a lot of little things really well. And I feel like that's the type of player where when you have a guy who does all the little things right, a coach is going to find a way, they're going to convince themselves we have to get this guy on the field. They're going to want to get him on the field because he can do a lot of different things. He's not a liability in pass protection. Just following along on Underdog's, Underdog and their coverage of these guys. Kansas they're not just like a inside zone strictly or an outside zones type of, that's not the type of system that they run. They've run a few different things, and Neal has shown success in multiple areas. You can put him in different schemes and he should be fine. He should be able to contribute regardless of this, like, is it an outside zone scheme like Miami runs, or is a little bit more like thumping up the middle? Neal should be able to do both of those. Can catch the ball. Seems like he has decent vision. I mean, I think it's fair to say Neal is that type of dude where, forgive me if this sounds dumb because you're like, well, doesn't this? He just looks like he knows how to play the running back position. He knows all of the little intricate small things to do, and he does them maybe not spectacularly, but he does them well enough. Where he's in that regard, it's kind of bland, but he's the whole package in that he does he does the little things well. That's going to get him on the field. I think he's going to get an opportunity because he's going to prove that he's not really a liability in any one specific area, and whoever his coach is going to be able to trust him and believe in him. They're probably going to feel that about him pretty quickly, pretty early on. I like Devin Neal. I think he has a chance to be a solid pro. And, there's a lot of interesting names. Judkins, good prospect. Caleb Johnson is an interesting, albeit polarizing prospect. Cam Scatabo. If you watched him against Texas in the college football playoff, that dude doesn't go down and he doesn't give up. They were down big in that game, and Scatabo was a big reason why they nearly mounted a comeback. Made some huge plays. He's tough. He doesn't go down, at least after first contact. Scatabo is interesting. Dylan Sampson, from what I've gathered, Sampson is a bit of like Genty light. Not the same level of prospect. He's just not on that level. Genty is one of one. But Sampson is kind of built from a similar, he's cut from the same cloth, I guess, so to speak, similar mold. So depending on his capital, if he's a day 2 pick, if he's a day 3 pick, then it's going to be hard to feel real strongly about him. But if Samson can get drafted in the 3rd round, I mean, I think he's got a chance to be like, he's, again, a bit of a thunder to somebody else's lightning in a committee. You can walk away from this draft in your rookie draft with, there's at least one solid running back, whereas last year we didn't feel as confident about that. If you miss out on Ginty and if it goes chalk and Amarian Hampton is either the 2nd running back off the board, either in your rookie draft or in the NFL draft, I think Henderson is going to be a real nice consolation prize as early as like the 105 or 106 in your rookie drafts. Again, depending on team needs and all of that stuff. And, of course, draft capital. And then I personally like Devin Neal. He's probably a mid-2nd round pick for me. Again, as long as the NFL agrees and makes him a day 2 pick. If Devin Neal is ideally a 2nd round pick, early to mid 2nd round pick in your rookie draft. Again, draft capital is going to be everything. Landing spot, not so much. Talent over situation. We always want to keep that in mind. We always want to remember that. Talent over situation. It's more or less about the draft capital. That's what truly matters, at least in most cases. Not all, but in most. Especially as it pertains to Dynasty. Devin Neal, I like quite a bit, depending on his landing spot. Scatabo, I appreciate his toughness. I appreciate his ability, like he stay upright. The first guy doesn't typically bring him down. Cam Scatabo's a dog. And then Dylan Sampson. He's the interesting one, depending on where he ends up, wherever he goes. He's not on the level of prospect that Ashton Ginty is, but he's cut from a very similar cloth, from a very similar mold. As far as size, play style, all of that. So we'll have to see where he ends up. Another running back that I'll mention, just who I feel like he's been a little polarizing. I've seen him climb up boards. I've seen him, then I've seen folks kind of like cool off on him a little bit more. But general consensus is that he is one of the somewhere from the top 7 to 10 running back prospects in this class. Is he out of Virginia Tech? Bashal Tutin. Because he's basically a Devon Achane clone. Not the same level of talent, not the same prospect. He's actually bigger than Achane by about 20 pounds. They're both the same height, 5'9". Achane weighs about 185 pounds. Tutin weighs about 205. So he's got about 20 pounds on him. One cut, that wide zone scheme that Achane thrives in. If Tutin lands in a similar style of offense, similar style of run game, I can see the hype getting a little crazy for him. The thing with Tutin, though, is he's not as good of a prospect as Achane. Not close. He's, the speed is there. Maybe not, again, he doesn't have Achane speed. He's got good speed. He's got plus speed. He doesn't have Devon Achane speed. He's again of a similar build. But his big issue is ball security. I think fumbling is a bit of an issue for Bashal Tutin. He's got big playability. But he comes with a lot of question marks. We all know, if you put the ball on the ground, you're not going to see the field. 9 fumbles over the past 2 seasons. I mean, he's got talent. But if he can't hold on to the football, he's not going to get an opportunity. So I've seen him climb as high as, the RB 7 or 8 in this class as far as prospect rankings go. And that's not as bad of a knock as it has been in years past, because this running back class is deep. Again, I think if you have a mid to late first round pick and a mid to late second round pick and running back is a need for you, this is a good year to go out and target running backs for your dynasty team. There are a lot of good options. So to be the 6th, 7th, 8th best running back prospect this year is not necessarily a bad thing. The question is, which of these guys end up being 4th, 5th, 6th round picks? And then it's like, we need probably at least 1 major injury, if not 2, for these guys to potentially see some form of relevance as it pertains to fantasy. So if I had to rank them, if I had to rank my running backs for this year, it's Genty. Genty's 1. He's everybody's 1, and deservedly so. There's no gotchas here with Ashton Genty. He's a blue chip prospect. He should be the 101. Even in Superflex rookie drafts where Cam Ward will be the first overall pick and Shedeur Sanders possibly gets drafted over Genty, maybe even Jackson Dart, depending on how far Genty falls. I don't think he falls very far. He should be the 101. He's that level of a prospect. After that, I would probably go Henderson. Then Hampton. Probably looking at Judkins after that. Again, Henderson has, flashed the big-time dynamic electric plays, but Quinton Judkins is no slouch as his teammate at Ohio State. Very good football player. Highly rated top 5 prospect by the general consensus in this draft. So Judkins, I would probably put at 4. I like Devin Neal probably a little more than most. I may put him as my RB5 just because, again, he's not flashy. He's not going to athleticism you or whatever, however you want to call it. He's not the superior athlete, but he does a lot of little things well. Multifaceted, can operate in multiple schemes, solid pass catcher, good in pass protection, good vision. I think he's got a lot. He doesn't do anything spectacularly, but he does a lot of little things well. I think that will be enough for him to get an opportunity and see the field. It's just a matter of where he gets drafted. And then, after that, probably some combination of Scattaboo, Caleb Johnson, and then Sampson. We also can't forget Ollie Gordon, who he is a little bit lower after an incredible 2023 season. He came back and followed it up with a lackluster 2024 season. There was, I believe, off-field stuff going on with Ollie Gordon. It wasn't his year. It didn't quite work out. But it wasn't too long ago that Ollie Gordon was considered a top prospect at the running back position in this class. And so we don't want to forget that, there is still some amount of talent in there. It's just a matter of, do the NFL teams that are looking at him consider it, was 2024 an outlier, or is that the new norm and 2023 is too long ago to feel good about, and therefore it's kind of in the trash? So I'd probably put Gordon in the 9 or 10 range. I may be willing to put him over Tootin. Again, Tootin is dynamic, but he's got the ball security issues. And he's just, he's the Devon Achane is the comp, but he's just not that level of, in all likelihood, he's not that level of prospect. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being a 4th or 5th round pick. And then it's like, now he's just a dart throw at best. I feel good about Henderson. I feel good about Devin Neal. If I had to target a couple of running backs outside of Ginty, it would be those two. Henderson as a mid to late 1st round pick, Devin Neal in the 2nd round. And then again, depending on landing spot, for your Dynasty rookie draft, Dylan Sampson could be a decent late 2nd, early 3rd round pick. So there's a few running backs that if you don't have the 101, you're not going to get Ginty. You may be a believer in Hampton. I need to see a little bit more. I think a lot of there were some pundits who I need to literally see a little bit more. There were some pundits who said that specifically about him when watching his film. Again, because there are questions. He's being touted as a guy with 3 down upside, but I think there are some who have their doubts about whether he can ascend to that level at the NFL level. But I like Henderson. I like Devin Neal. I'm mildly intrigued by Dylan Sampson. And Scatabo. I'm intrigued by Scatabo as well. Again, tough runner, gritty guy. Doesn't go down first tackle. And he's a gamer. We saw it again against Texas. Arizona State was losing in that game, and Arizona State mounted a respectable comeback pretty much on the back of Scatabo balling out. So, yeah, some interesting names at running back in this class. It's a good year in Dynasty to need running backs because in all likelihood, there will be a solid one available at your pick. And you can always make trades if you need to maneuver. But I would forego the wide receivers this year in favor of drafting running backs. To that point, and I'll probably wrap up here somewhat shortly just because I don't think there's too much to say about this wide receiver class. We can get into tight ends maybe next week, again, because there's only a couple of them. But this year, at the wide receiver position, again, it's kind of like last year's wide receiver prospects. You're probably putting like at least 3 or 4 before this year's top prospect. And this year's top prospect by the general consensus is Tet McMillan out of Arizona. Big body, 6'5". The comps I've seen as far as ceiling, he's not going to be Mike Evans, but he reminds people of Mike Evans because of the size, the play style. He can make contested catches. He'll go up and get the ball. He's got excellent hands, and he's got the size to be an X receiver, to be a full-time outside wide receiver. He's the wide receiver 1 prospect this year. He's probably like the wide receiver 4 or 5 prospect last year. I would probably take like 2 or 3 running backs in my rookie draft ahead of Tet McMillan. He does some things well. Drake London is another guy that he has been comped to, but Drake London is a better prospect, I think, generally, than Tet McMillan is. Makes a lot of contested catches. I think that also is kind of alludes to separation skills are a little bit of an issue for him. He doesn't have that elite second level speed. Again, it's worked out fine for Mike Evans. Drake London is generally doing okay without needing top-tier elite-level speed to produce and perform as an X wide receiver. But it also took Drake London a couple of years to have a consistent, like this year, he had a consistent fantasy season. Year 1 and year 2 were anything but. Some of that had to do with bad quarterback play. But to that point, if Tet ends up somewhere where we only feel mildly confident about the quarterback play, he might not produce from a fantasy perspective right away. And then, of course, there's the big, the big concern with Tet that the footballers called out, and it's kind of been recently making the rounds, the waves, whatever you want to call it. Ted McMillan's going to have to change his mind about watching film, because he's on record saying that he hasn't really done it at the college level. Because he was always just, I'm not putting words in his mouth at this point. I think this is just the thought process. Tet was always just bigger and stronger than the guy that he was lining up against at cornerback. So he was always able to just be like, I'm just better than you. I am the superior athlete here. And that worked. A lot of times for him, that worked. He has made some great catches, some great contested catches while at Arizona. But if you're not doing the extra work at the NFL level, and I imagine that will change because now it's his job. When you get to the NFL level, this is now like, you're living, breathing football at the collegiate level, but you're doing it even more so at the NFL level, where he's going to have to have time in the film room with his teammates, with his coaches, and he's going to have to embrace that. So, it's not an unfair question, because Tet said it himself that he doesn't like to watch film. But will Tet go above and beyond? Will he do what the extra steps? Will he take on the extra responsibilities that is necessary for him to succeed at the NFL level? Because you're not going to be able to just be bigger and stronger than everybody at the NFL, because everybody at the NFL is the exact same as you. They were the biggest and strongest guy on the field every time they took the field. Now that's your competition. What will you do when there are guys who are studying you on the other side and have the athletic abilities to boot to slow you down in a way that it wasn't as much of a problem for you at the college level? So I have some concerns about Tet, admittedly. I'm not as bullish on him. I think he's the number one prospect at the wide receiver position this year, a bit out of necessity, just because this class isn't being very highly touted. As a result, I think he's climbing up. His stock is higher than maybe it should be, because also wide receiver is now such a premium position, not just in fantasy, but at the NFL level. You need good wide receiver play to be a good team. Obviously, quarterback is still first and foremost as far as the established piece that you need on offense, but you need good wide receivers. You can't just get by with a great quarterback and average weapons. Wide receiver is a premier position anymore. So teams rate them and rank them with more value. I think that's pushing Tet up the board a little higher than I am comfortable with. So tentatively, I'm not feeling super bullish on Tet. Tet might be a buy low guy that I'm interested in Dynasty leagues maybe a couple of years from now, but I am willing to pass on him if I have a top 3 pick, a top 5 pick, in favor of Travion Henderson. Maybe Tyler Warren, depending on Warren's draft capital. And then in Superflex formats, I may prefer, I might prefer Shedeur Sanders. Again, depending on landing spot, depending on draft capital. Tet, I would say, is a little bit more for me. And like, if I had the 6th pick, the 5th or 6th pick in a rookie draft, I would consider him there. But I think he's going 3rd or 4th overall, and that's enough. There's enough splitting hairs that we can do here for me to say, I don't think I want him at 3. I don't think I want him at 3. Assuming, in a super flex draft, if it goes Ginty and then Ward, I don't think I want Tet at 3. And in a 1 quarterback draft, I don't want him at 2. Take Henderson. I'll take Hampton. I'll take Tyler Warren, especially if it's tight end premium, which most dynasty leagues are. Yeah, I'm not feeling Tet as much. I'm a little more interested in some of the other names. Luther Burden, Emeka Egbuka. Egbuka doesn't have as high of a ceiling, but I do think he has a rock solid floor as a solid NFL contributor over the course of his NFL career. He comes from a program in Ohio State with the track record of molding and developing wide receivers. He has, shown an ability to be consistent. He's got good hands. I think he's going to be an excellent contributor on an NFL team over the course of his career. He should be a late first-round pick, both in the NFL draft and in your dynasty rookie drafts. He may not be a weekly starter for you, but I do think he will be the type of guy that hangs around on your dynasty team and provides rock-solid, consistent depth. Of course, obviously, the true wild card is Travis Hunter, who is one of the more dynamic players in the draft, in the NFL draft. The question is obviously just how much wide receiver does he play? And how quickly does his body break down over time if he is a full-time player on both offense and defense, which I think he it seems it's trending in that direction that's what he's going to do and wants to do at the NFL level. He wants to play both wide receiver and corner. So, if he's getting targeted on 40% of his routes run because when he's on offense, when he's getting utilized, then great, spectacular. I don't need him on the field 75, 80% of the time. But, incredible talent, incredible football talent, hell of an athlete. Difficult to have full confidence in from a fantasy perspective just because we do not know what his role is going to be. So where he gets drafted and the coach speak and front office speak that comes in the days following the draft, the days and weeks following the draft, will maybe help shape what we can expect from Travis Hunter. Right now, it's hard to say that he should be anything other than a late first-round pick, though, in your rookie draft, because we just don't know how, he's going to be probably a part-time player on offense. But the guy I think I'm into is Luther Burden. I think expected at this point to be a first-round pick. The concern with Burden is that he had an incredible 2023 and he had a bad statistical drop-off in 2024. A lot of this is attributed to the quarterback play year over year. 2023 was significantly better than the quarterback play he received in 2024. And Burden, I think, naturally became a focal point for opposing defenses this year after the stellar 2023 that he had. But should have an opportunity at a Swiss Army knife type of role in an offense. If we get a progressive, not curmudgeon play caller as far as an offensive coordinator goes, depending on who gets the opportunity to use him and utilize him in their offense, I would feel good about Burden. It'll be a little bit dependent on the offensive coordinator. And you could say that about a lot of folks. I think for Burden, it's a little bit more because Burden I do not think he is the type of player that an old school type of offensive coordinator would want to figure out how to involve into an offense. Whereas a little bit more new school, we'll find a role for him. Good athlete. Again, you can utilize him in multiple ways, different ways. You could hand it to him in the backfield. Short plays at the line of scrimmage, but can also go deep. He has the athleticism and the speed to get downfield and make plays down the field. Even though his usage in college doesn't really show that, I think his skill set can translate and will translate at the NFL level as a guy that can at least be an intermediate threat, if not a deep threat as well. So at the top of the draft, you have Tet, you have Luther Burden, you have you have the wild card that is Travis Hunter, and then you have Emeka Egbuka, who I think is trending toward just being he's just going to be a rock solid, damn good professional football player for an NFL team. I think that will have occasional value in fantasy, but maybe not consistent fantasy value. I think he will be a good pro. It is yet to be seen is yet to be determined if Egbuka will be a consistent fantasy threat. But I think he is destined to be a consistent, rock-solid producer and just general player to have on your football team in the NFL. Okay, I think I'm going to shut this down today for now. It's been a little while since I jumped on the mic. I had a few folks pop in. Rojo, I appreciate it. I know that there's probably some folks that are like, they don't even know that I've been doing this because I've been AWOL for a little while and, bit of a busy off season so far. I will get into the rest of the wide receivers and the tight ends next week. Hopefully, if there's any other questions that anybody has, you can shoot them my way, and I can react to them or respond to them either in comments or in the form of other videos and other live streams. The intention, of course, is to get the channel back up and running on a consistent basis. Now that draft season is here, and especially after the draft, we'll start looking at the rookies once we know their landing spots and start maybe trying to chart out what we can expect from them in year one for both Dynasty and redraft, and then just beyond for a general Dynasty discussion. Basically, quarterbacks are okay this year. Running backs are interesting. Wide receivers are very lackluster. And there's a couple tight ends at the top where I think expectations are quite high, especially from a fantasy perspective. So we'll get into all of that in the coming days, weeks, over the course of the offseason as we get through the draft and into the OTAs and the mini camps. As we press on through the offseason. Appreciate everybody's time. Thank you for stopping in if you did. Appreciate it. I will be back on a little bit more of a consistent basis moving forward. It's good to be back after a bit of a couple-month hiatus there. Hopefully everybody's had a good 2025 thus far. And hopefully you'll be seeing more of me as we continue to move through the calendar year into the draft and beyond when OTAs and mini camps really start to hit full swing. So just wanted to pop on for a bit today. I appreciate everybody's time. Thanks for listening if you did. I'll see you guys soon. Thanks.